Can you have some s'mores? Oh honey, it's April and we live in Wisconsin. Never let the weather get you down. Instead of going outside for s'mores, we're gonna make s'mores cupcakes today. This is gonna be a type of buttered or shortened or creamed fat cake. All terms are used to describe the same thing. We're gonna be using butter and oil within the recipe. These cupcakes are going to be layered with a graham cracker crust, followed by the chocolate cake filled with chocolate buttercream and topped with marshmallow icing. Over medium heat, we're going to combine our milk chocolate chips and our butter. You're going to gradually melt this down. You could use regular milk chocolate. I just had enough Hershey's bars to last through any bonfire, even through any zombie apocalypse, because we have that much. After this is melted, we're going to put this in another bowl, let it sit for 10 minutes before we stick it in the refrigerator to completely set. You're going to mix together the brown sugar, flour, and graham cracker crumb, and then you're going to be adding in your butter. If it starts getting stuck in your whisk, you can always switch over to a rubber scraper. You're going to take just slightly less than a tablespoon of the graham cracker crumb mixture, put it in, and then pat it down. We're going to pop these in the oven for 5 minutes just so that the graham cracker crumb can set. For this recipe, you're going to almost completely melt your butter. Then we're going to add some vegetable oil and our chocolate chips, and we're going to melt this back in the microwave. Give it a stir. If it still needs more time, we can pop it in for another 15 seconds. When a recipe calls for something sifted, if it appears after the ingredient, we sift it after we measure it. So this is a 1/4 cup of cocoa powder sifted. So light and fluffy. So in a separate bowl, we are going to be combining our all-purpose flour, our leavening agents, so these are chemical leaveners, baking soda and baking powder. My salt was also in there, and I'm adding my sifted cocoa powder. Whisk it, and then set it off to the side. Since this recipe calls for 2 eggs, but we only want 1 whole egg and 1 egg yolk, I'm going to lightly crack it on the counter. I will get my whole egg first. Remember, we always want to crack it into another container before we add it to our bowl in case there are shells or a bloody egg. Okay, and then for my second one, I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to only add the yolk to my final mixture. So you can save this egg white for later because we're going to be using it for our marshmallow frosting. So just set this off to the side. Which one? You can use either of these. Either one is going to be just fine. This is going to be a thinner batter, so I think I'm going to stick with the whisk, but the general paddle attachment would be totally fine too. Here we're going to be trapping some air into fat, so we're going to take our sugar and add it to our eggs, as well as I'm going to add some of the vanilla just to get that flavor going. Once it's incorporated, I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to add my cooled chocolate mixture from before. This is what I had microwaved earlier. It's the butter, semi-sweet chocolate chips, and oil. And then we're going to mix that together again. So we have the majority of our liquids combined. We still have to add our buttermilk and our coffee, and we'll get to that. But we're going to be adding about half of our dry mixture in. So I'm adding about half of that dry mixture with my leavening agents, flour, and cocoa powder. I'm going to mix that in. We want to mix this just until combined, and then we're going to turn this off and we're going to add our buttermilk. And again, whisking until combined. Now we're going to mix in the rest of our dry mix. And again, mix until combined. Our last ingredient is a 1/4 cup of coffee. Coffee is sponsored by my husband. We'll add this in and then whisk until combined. Because this is a runnier batter, it's going to be in our benefit to transfer this to a liquid measuring cup so I can pour them evenly into my cupcake spots. With this particular recipe, you're going to notice that some of the butter seeps out from the graham cracker crumbs, so don't panic with that. We're going to fill these about 3/4 full for each one, so you can see why the liquid measuring cup is coming in handy. You could also use a piping bag, or you could use an ice cream scoop, or you can use this crazy thing called a spoon. No. We're gonna put these in the oven. And if we take a toothpick to them and they come out clean, we know that they're done, so we can allow to cool completely. For our next step, we're going to get a double boiler going. So we're going to have about 1 inch of water in a saucepan. We're going to have our bowl that's going to be able to sit on top of our simmering water once it's ready. And then we also want to have the thermometer ready to go so that we can temp our eggs. Just like our angel food cake recipe, we want to work with room temperature eggs, so place your eggs in warm water. Our water is simmering, so now we can add our bowl with our eggs. Just like our angel food, we have to make sure that we don't get any yolks in here. So we have our egg whites, we have sugar, we have salt for flavor, and cream of tartar to stabilize the egg whites so that they thicken. After my eggs have temped to 120, I'm going to move them over to the KitchenAid bowl and have it going on high for 5 minutes. Add a little bit of vanilla in the final steps. And then mix that in. When it's done, it's going to hold its shape slightly. It might have a little bit of a curly cue, but num-nums. It is gonna be sticky. From our refrigerated chocolate buttercream before, we're going to take this out of the fridge, and then we're gonna mix this until it gets light, airy, and fluffy. Fluffy! I love the fluffiness! For each cupcake, you're going to take a paring knife and you're just going to make a cone out of the center. This is going to be where we'll put our chocolate buttercream. You can just pop that out. The consistency of your buttercream should be light and airy, so take a mixer to it right before you use it, and then you're just going to use 1 spoon to grab a scoop, and then you're going to use the back of the spoon to fill the center. And you're going to do that with your remaining cupcakes. 2 choices for piping your icing on is to use a pastry bag or a Ziploc bag. Either one is fine. Regardless of which one you use, you're going to want to take a corner and snip off the edges and then pull down the sides, so that way when we are adding in our icing, it's not going to spill all over the place. And then we can take this and pop it into a cup. You can do the same thing with a Ziploc bag if you don't have any pastry bags at home. Once we have our bag sitting in our cup, we can fill up that bag by taking a rubber scraper, placing that in the bag, and you can use the sides to pull this down. I wouldn't fill it more than 2/3 full, otherwise it might start shooting out the top. And then we can take this whole thing, fold it up, and it is a sticky frosting, so just keep that in mind. But we will squeeze this so that we have our opening here and ice around the sides and build it up. Another option, if you don't have a pastry bag, you can always use a spoon and then use that same technique we did with the buttercream filling. You use 1 spoon to lift it, use another one to set it on top, and then you can just spread it out. So you might have a little bit of that chocolate come out from the bottom, but I think life will be just fine. Is to toast the top of your icing using the broiler setting. We do not want to walk away from this. Less than 2 minutes later. Golden deliciousness. All right. Did I need to bring a torch home? No. Did I want to? Why, yes. Yes, I did. Let it burn, burn, burn.